All right, so this is German unification. So this is Zollverein. Zollverein. This is in 1834. What this is a the red outline. This is the German Customs Union, and anything that was traded inside of this, right? It was low tariff or no tariff, and they had similar economic policies. Now they have different political policies, but this has existed since 1833. Okay, and we're well into the 19th century. Now we have Prussia is the largest kingdom. Okay, and you've got Prussia, which is this area right here, and then this area right here, and then you've got a couple of different other large kingdoms, and then this is Austria. Okay, all of this area though, these people are all Germans, and then this is Denmark. But there has been an economic and a cultural unity, but there has not been a political unity in this region. Okay, so there's going to be a rivalry between the Prussians in the north, that's the blue here, and the Austrians in the south. And the rivalry is over control of the destiny of the German people, if you want to be dramatic. But the reason why there's a rivalry as well is because these guys are Lutheran and these guys are Catholic. Uh, this part of the Austrian Empire is Germanic. This part is made up of lots of different people, Hungarians and all kinds of people. So we talked about this in the past. We talked about how the Austrian emperors in Vienna, they wanted to unite these places as a German country, but failed to do so with the 30 Years' War. And so they went east to Hungary and places like that. Well, the Prussians are going to try to strengthen their hand, but they've got to figure out how to bring this area right here under their control because these people are Catholic too. Now, remember, Napoleon, when he steamrolled Europe, he destroyed the Holy Roman Empire. And so this doesn't exist anymore. This is now called it's the Confederacy of Germany, German Confederation. So the key players in German unification are first the Kaiser Wilhelm I. He's the king of Prussia. Next is Helmuth von Moltke, the elder. And why he's important is he's the chief of the Prussian general staff. He's the head of the army. And he does a fantastic job in understanding how to use the Prussian forces to incredible efficiency, how to mobilize them quickly. Because most of the time, people who are in the military aren't actually in the military. They're just doing their normal lives. You have a core of people who are part of the military, and then you bring up farmers and people in the cities. You give them a uniform and a weapon, and you get them out there to fight. The Prussians were incredibly efficient at this. And then we have the Chancellor Otto von Bismarck. Von Bismarck is super important. His nickname is the Iron Chancellor. He works behind the scene tirelessly to make this guy, who is the King of Prussia, King Wilhelm, become the emperor of the German Empire. Okay, so his nicknames are Blood and Iron. He invents the term realpolitik. Super important guy. Here's some sayings from him. It says, the less people know about how sausages and laws are made, the better they'll sleep at night. Never believe in anything until it has been officially denied. The great questions of the day will not be settled by speeches and majority decisions. That was the mistake of 1848 and 49, but by blood and iron. And what he's referencing, of course, in 48 and 49 is the revolutions that had failed. And he's saying that you want something, it's going to take blood and iron. So meaning the military is going to get it done. I'm bored. I am bored. The great things are done. The German Reich is made. Reich just means empire. A generation that has taken a beating is always followed by a generation that deals one. Some damned foolish thing in the next Balkans will provide or provoke the next war. So he's predicting what's going to happen in World War One. He'll be dead decades before that happens. But all right, so this is the German Confederation. Okay, remember, confederations they have a weak central power, and the states are the ones that have the power. In this case, it's not states, it's kingdoms. So in order for Otto von Bismarck and the Prussians to take their king and make him emperor, they got to do a few things. First is they go to war with the Danes. And they do this by aligning themselves with the Austrians. And this Danish War is in 1864. Now, what this guy was worried about, Helmuth von Moltke, was that by invading Denmark, what was going to end up happening is the Danish army would go out to these islands and they would be hard to defeat, and this would be a long, protracted war. So the Prussians wanted an ally, and they got the Austrians, and they wanted to quickly defeat them. And you can see which parts they attacked. So the northern part here, this was attacked by the Prussian army, and this bottom part here was attacked by the Austrians. And it was a great success for them. It was a short war, and they won. And this land, which was contested, was taken by the Germans from the Danes. Third was going to be the creation of what's called the Northern German Confederation, and this was achieved in 1867. So shortly following the victory of Prussia, Bismarck eliminated Austrian-led German Confederation. So the Confederation is no longer going to be controlled out of Vienna. Instead, it's going to be controlled out of Berlin. And he then, meaning Bismarck, established a new German Confederacy or Confederation with Prussia in control, and this was settled at what's called the Peace of Prague. So you've got two Germanys, and what I mean by that is you got the Austrian part of Germany, and then you have this German Confederation, and for really centuries, the Austrians had dominated it, but that's no longer the case. Now you have to kind of tie this in. You actually don't have to you have to tie this in with what we talked about on the last presentation, which was about the Crimean War. Remember, the Austrians sat that out. And Bismarck is going to see that as like he's like a shark, and he smells blood in the water because the Austrians didn't get involved. And so he's going to capitalize on what he sees rightly as Austrian weakness, and he's going to show Prussian strength. So fourth is what's called the Ems Dispatch, and this is in 1870, and this is used as a catalyst for war with France. So in 1868, there was a revolt in Spain, and Spanish leaders, they wanted Prince Leopold von Hohenz, who was a cousin to the Kaiser and a Catholic, to be their new king. And then France protests, and they don't want a German prince becoming the king of Spain, because they see that you've got a growing in strength Prussia to the east, and then you'd have the Prussians with an ally to the south in Spain, and so this makes the French unhappy, and so they protest it, and the prince's name is withdrawn, and the French ambassador asks the Kaiser Ems to apologize to Napoleon III for supporting Leopold. Okay, and this is not something that should have been done. For one thing, the Kaiser is important. I mean, Napoleon III, the emperor, is important too, but this is gives you a sense of like how the French really view themselves as important and powerful, and they disrespect the Prussians. And Bismarck is going to use this as an opportunity because he's going to take a telegram that was written by the ambassador to Kaiser Wilhelm, and he's going to doctor it, meaning it's fake news. He changes it, and it makes it seem as though the Kaiser had insulted Napoleon III, and that's not actually what happened. So that's not the only thing. The Ems dispatch isn't the only thing. It's like one thing that it's like the catalyst, but Bismarck is going to use all kinds of like propaganda. He's going to write. He knows how to use newspapers. He knows how to change the public's opinion, and he changes the German people's opinion about the French in such a way that they believe that they have been insulted, that their king has been insulted, and that it's worth the Prussians going to war with the French. Okay? So it's interesting. So the Franco-Prussian War happens, and it's from 1870 to 1871. And this, honestly, is the reason why World War I and World War II happened in great respects. And the reason why is because the French, who felt powerful and were powerful, they get their butts handed to them by the Prussians. Prussia is a much smaller country. France is a global empire. I mean, they've taken over most of northern Africa, parts of West Africa. They have colonies all around the world. The Prussians are just a collection of kingdoms, really. But the Prussians, because of their efficiency, because of their leadership, because of their discipline, they humiliatingly defeat the French. So much so that Napoleon III, the Emperor of France, he will be captured. That's the Battle of Sedan. So this is Napoleon III speaking with Bismarck. And this will be settled with what's called the Treaty of Frankfurt, which is in Germany. So the Second French Empire is actually going to collapse. Napoleon III will be deposed, and he will be replaced by what's called the Third French Empire. The Italians, during this time, as we talked about, they use this opportunity to march on Rome, and they make Rome their capital. Russia is going to put warships in the Black Sea, and they do this because they're trying to act in defiance of the 1856 Treaty of Paris, which had happened. Remember, we talked about the Crimean War. And France is going to be forced by the Prussians to pay what's called an indemnity. It's a fine. And the Germans will actually stay, and they will occupy France until that indemnity is paid. And they force France to cede territory called the Alsace-Lorraine, which is territory between France and the German Confederation. The people there speak German. And it's a region, though, that's really rich in iron deposits. And you're going to need this because if you're going to industrialize, which Germany is in the process of doing, you need access to iron. And it also has a flourishing textile industry. So this is a big loss for the French, and they're not going to forget this. So this is Kaiser Wilhelm I. And there he is right there. This, and there's von Bismarck. This is actually in the Palace of Versailles in the Hall of Mirrors. So the guy who is the King of Prussia, who is declared the Emperor of the German people, or the German Reich, is actually, his coronation happens in a French castle. Okay? This is a big deal. This is one of the reasons why the French and the Germans have so much animosity towards each other, and they fight World War I and World War II. Now, the Prussian Junkers, remember, these are the aristocrats, they swear their allegiance to the Kaiser before the Kaiser in the Hall of Mirrors. So this guy, his father, Wilhelm I, his father could have been the emperor. Back in 1848, we talked about this, and he didn't want it because he said that the crown wasn't the parliament of the people that had formed. It wasn't theirs to give. Well, this one was earned by blood and iron. So we have the beginnings of the German Empire. So this is the German flag. It's still the German flag today. This is the German flag, the German Empire's flag, the Second Reich. And you know what the Third Reich's flag looks like. And if you don't, it's the one with the swastika in it, you guys. So Bismarck, though, back in Germany, he's able to manipulate the Reichstag. So the Reichstag is like the equivalent of like what our Congress is. So Germany is a constitutional monarchy, and it had been because the guy who is the emperor, right, when he was the king during the 1848 revolutions, his father made Germany into a constitutional monarchy. So this is Bismarck's Kulturkampf. It's an anti-Catholic program. And so what happens is education, which had been controlled by like nuns and priests, that was taken away in all parts of Germany. And this wouldn't really have affected anybody in northern Germany, too many people anyways, but in the southern part of Germany, it did. And then marriage was taken out of the hands of the clergy. Now, you could still have a priest marry you, but if you were going to get a marriage license, you had to get it from the state. And you had to have a civil recognized marriage. Okay. The Jesuits, that's a French thing, but they're not just French, but it's a Catholic order, which we have talked about before. They were expelled from Germany. They were forced out. And then the education of Catholic priests would be under the supervision of the German government. So German priests who are Catholic would have to have received a German education. So this is a way for the Germans to keep like a French or Italian or Austrian influence out of Germany. Then we have Bismarck's rapprochement with the Catholic Church, meaning he's going to try to make nice. And that's with the new Pope, though. This is Pope Leo XIII. And when Kaiser Wilhelm dies, his son, Kaiser Wilhelm II, will take over. You've definitely seen this guy if you had U.S. history last year. He's the guy he's the last Kaiser of Germany. But he's the one that is involved with, and really a primary cause of World War I. What's interesting is if you were to actually look at almost all of the different kings, queens, princesses, princes, dukes, all of Europe, they're almost all related in some way, shape, or form to England's queen at this time, who was Victoria. And Victoria was queen from 1819 until 1901. She's the longest serving queen. She'll probably be eclipsed rather by the current queen, though. But so William, that's another name for Wilhelm. Here he is. He is a grandson of Victoria. When she dies, Edward will become the next king. So the King of England will be cousins with the Emperor of Germany. It's crazy. In 1890, though, Kaiser Wilhelm II will, it's called dropping the pilot. And what they mean by pilot here is that, Germany's affairs internally and externally had been orchestrated by Bismarck. And Wilhelm II is not happy with that, and he decides to become something that we've talked about, which doesn't work out too well. He wants to become a absolute monarch. So he fires Bismarck, tells him, thanks for your help, but you're no longer needed. So here he is, the Kaiser. And that's where we're going to end it for this one. So we have two states that are new in Europe. We've got Italy in the south, and we've got Germany in the north. Neither are democratic. Both are monarchies. Both are constitutional monarchies, but Germany is going in a different direction.